Hello guys and gals, wherever you are around the world, it's the Duchess of Monty Shit Show. I hope you are all doing really well today. Firstly, I need to apologise to you all for my absence. I've not been very well recently. As many of you know, I've been put back on some chemotherapy treatment for my arthritis. I think it's fair to say I've not responded to it very well, or rather my body's not responded very well to it. It's made me incredibly poorly over the last few weeks. I currently, if I sound a bit breathy today, I apologise. I am in the middle of a chest infection, which is unfortunately quite normal when you have low immunity. You tend to pick up every cough and cold going, so I will really try not to cough too much. The second reason I've been quiet is that my children are on the long 6 weeks holiday now before going back to school and college. And I have really wanted to spend some quality time with them because during the week they're at school, and then sometimes when they're at home and I'm poorly and I can't spend time with them, quality time. So I really did want to try and make it up to them over the summer. Anyway, that aside, welcome to any new subscribers that have sneaked in over the past few weeks. It's great to have you here. Please do like, share and subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get to it. So, today, the Dutch Arse, with the emphasis firmly on arse, launched her first episode of the new Spotify podcast Archetypes. You know the one, the word that she tried to trademark. Archetypes, 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 archetypes. So the first almost hour-long episode is entitled The Misconception of Ambition with Serena Williams. It's a bit awkward listening to it now that Serena's gone on public record to say that they're not really best buddies. Meghan was more of an acquaintance to her. That really tickled me, listening to the hour-long podcast, which is essentially a gush fest between the two. I'm like, yeah, okay. So firstly, let me just talk about the branding. So Meghan has dropped the royal title for this one, which I find strange, given that she was so quick to use Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, or just the Duchess of Sussex, when it came to releasing The Bench, and also when it came to putting her name onto Pearl, the Netflix project, which sadly is no longer happening. She's just dropped it and she's simply called Meghan. You know, like these big celebrity A-listers like Beyonce or Britney or Kylie. She's just called Meghan. Okay, love, you think that you're in the same league as them. You carry on. So the first episode, it starts off with Markle very proudly retelling the whole BS story, now confirmed to be BS, by the way, by her dad, Thomas Markle Sr., about how at 11 years old, we all know this story, she went all Karen after hearing a washing up liquid commercial during one of her 6th grade classes where they talk about women fighting greasy pots and pans. In her podcast, she states that watching this commercial changed the way she understood her place in the world. Yeah, okay. So a dish soap ad from the early 90s helped her to realise that she needed to become a lying grifter, a yachting enthusiast, and a part-time, but only when it suits a vegetarian. Hell. For anyone wondering, it's called Ivory Clear Dish Soap. So if it still exists, never ever buy it because it sounds toxic. If that's what it does to people. So the podcast then goes into an audio clip of 11-year-old Rachel Markle pointing out and pouting about her feelings, about getting her feelings hurt because when watching the commercial, 2 boys in her class laughed. You know, I hate to break it to you, sweetie, but 11-year-old boys laugh at everything. I have one. My 11-year-old boy, Clark, he's moderately deaf with hearing aids, and he has mild learning disabilities. He laughs at everything. You know, whether I've put my jumper on backwards this morning, you know, just simple things like whether the cat attempted to jump from the sofa onto the table and missed, or he laughs about poop. Yeah, poop and bums are the real in thing to be laughing about at 11 at the moment, it seems. So the boys in her class in LA did laugh. Maybe they were just really intuitive and could sense that they were witnessing the birth of someone who thought she was more important than she really was. Markle goes on to divulge specifics of her letter writing campaign to Hillary Clinton, Gloria Allred, Procter and Gamble, Linda Ellaby, etc., etc. Excuse me. I mean, it's kind of cringy. I mean, she's really kind of doubled down on that lie, hasn't she? Instead of just not. You know, I don't know how long ago this podcast was recorded, but you'd think that if it was recorded some time ago and the lie has been exposed in Tom Bower's book Revenge, you think she would have at least pulled that from the podcast and replaced it with something else. But no, she's doubled down on that lie, and it's pretty cringy. Now we all know that it is a lie. I mean, she is right. While she did write letters, it now transpires she never received any responses. Her father kind of lied to her and was just pandering to her, really. Probably, I should imagine, just to shut her up. You know, I can only imagine how demanding she must have been at that age. So she goes on to claim this as her victory, because Procter and Gamble, after her letter, suddenly did change the word in the advert, the word women to people. So she claims this as her victory by saying, quote, "I could paint this as a moment of triumph. And don't get me wrong, it was." So I like how she tries to play it down by saying that her one small action caused a ripple effect far beyond her. You know, she describes the experience as awakening. I beg to differ. I think it's sickening, but you know, whatever floats your boat. So going on, the next part of the podcast starts. I've never lost touch with reality. Yeah, reality, babes. You know, that thing that you like to portray, which isn't the reality for everyone else. Yeah, I mean, I suppose the reality is, you know, that her lying narcissistic traits were awakened at that point in her life, and she's done nothing but grow and manifest, you know, into a much darker version as an adult. Yeah, I mean, after a couple of nonsensical minutes of blurb about what the podcast is about and what and who to expect over the next few episodes, Meghan Markle goes on to introduce her dear friend, Serena Williams. She's not your honey. She's not your friend. She's not. She's openly admitted it. If I was being really cynical, I'd think she probably needs some way of staying relevant now that she's retiring from tennis, but okay. So after the gushy introduction, Rachel predictably goes back to talking about herself. Quelle surprise. This time it's about her time at Immaculate Heart Catholic School. She talks about how ambition was the very thread that ran through her life in all of her 6 years at the school, but then sniggers when she describes that she only felt ambition to be a negative, dirty word when she was dating Harry. Now, I've got to take issue with her use of the word ambition in reference to Harry. She was not ambitious, as she settled for a whiny, entitled, racist man-child. And he clearly wasn't ambitious, because out of all the beautiful women in the world with genuine talent and a decent personality that he could have had, he settled for her. So I guess a woman squatting in the bushes is a real turn on, huh? Not for me. So back to the podcast, and Markle fawns over her faux friend, Serena Williams. Harry then interrupts their chat briefly to tell Serena Williams that her hair is such a vibe. A vibe? Is that like an American term or something? And that she should come visit soon. And as he leaves, Meghan calls out, "Thanks, my love." Oh, bless him. He's got his little cameo in again, his little starring role, only this time he was actually allowed inside and wasn't relegated to juggling his hairy ginger balls outside the window, like the utter clown he is. So within the next minute or so, I did have to pause the podcast as Serena Williams gushed about herself and how she's always super loyal to Meghan. I actually started laughing so hard that it aggravated my lungs. And I was in the middle of a really bad coughing fit for about 30 seconds, relieved only by having a nice cool drink. My drink of choice really being the bitter tears of the Sussex squad off the back of Tom Bower's book Revenge, in which their Princess Meggy Weggy got blasted and battered in the literary sense. So the two women then go on to sickly reminisce over meeting at a Super Bowl game. Meghan bleats about the hypocrisy that when a man is ambitious, it's celebrated, but when a woman is ambitious, it's exactly the opposite. Well, I can't speak for anyone else on this channel, but I absolutely do celebrate ambitious women all over the world that achieve amazing things through their own hard work and their hard work ethic. But I cannot and I will not celebrate a woman who lies, manipulates, bullies, and quite honestly, and this is my opinion only, sleeps her way up the food chain, trampling on all of those in her way, friend, family or foe, in her quest for fame and power. So what kind of role model is that? Clearly not a good one for Lily. I can see the conversation between Meghan and Lily now. Don't worry, darling. Just tell a few lies, slap a few people with NDAs, sleep with wealthy but stupid men, and you'll have it made. You'll never have to work a damn day in your life. Yeah, the very epitome of fake it till you make it. Further into the episode, Meghan and Serena start verbally patting themselves and each other on the backs. And, in just talking about how they were just 11 years old and they already knew that they were fearless and they just grow up to be these amazing kick-ass women. So going on even from that, I'm just skipping through parts. So a few minutes of Serena chatting about her tennis career and all the double standards between men and women, blah, blah. It didn't take long for Meghan to bring the conversation back round into the cul-de-sac that she always does, namely being a mom. So they talked about the double standards between men and women and how they are treated upon re-entering the workplace after having a child. Men are generally promoted and get more money because they are now seen as providers for the family, whereas the women just don't. I'm being very simplistic there, but you get the idea. So, being the narcissist she is, Meghan finds a way yet again to bring the conversation back round to herself. And she recounted the time that they took baby Archie to a housing unit in South Africa whilst she toddled off to stand on a tree stump and deliver one of her wokey waffle salad speeches. She then she got quite emotional actually. She emotionally tells a tale of how there was a fire in Archie's nursery room in South Africa, but miraculously the nanny, Lauren, she goes into specifics, the nanny, Lauren, decides to go and make a snack and she takes Archie with her. And it's at that exact moment, dun dun dun, the heater caught fire in Archie's room. Now, if that really happened, that is truly awful. If it actually happened. It's really hard to believe somebody who's been caught out on so many lies. Lest we forget that Harry's wife is a confirmed habitual and pathological liar. There was never anything mentioned, either verbally or in print, about this instance in any of their speeches, documentaries, interviews. Certainly not in that pathetic performance she gave Tom Bradby in his interview on that South Africa trip. It was all about her and how no one asked if she was okay. Right, okay. So are you honestly telling me that a great-grandson of the Queen of the UK and the Commonwealth narrowly missed getting caught in a fire, and this is the first that anyone's heard of it in nearly 4 years? Yeah, okay then. Also, Was there actually a heater in the room? And if so, why? Because let me tell you, South Africa is extremely hot at that time of year. I've lived there briefly, and if anything, there wasn't enough air conditioning. Yeah, so that also calls that account into question. Meghan went on to bleat about having to leave her baby after the fire to go off on another official engagement. I mean, girl, you were there to represent the Queen and the royal family. You weren't there on a 2-for-1 Thomas Cook package deal. You weren't there on your jolly holidays. If you really did have to go to an official engagement, it's inconceivable to me that baby Archie did not go with you or was not allowed to go. I straight up don't believe that story. I'm sorry. If my baby, 4.5-month-old baby, had just narrowly avoided severe harm, severe danger, I would not let that child out of my sight. Let me tell you a true story. Just after I came back from South Africa, my son, who is now 16, he was a similar age to Archie at that point, actually. He was only about 4.5, 5 months old. Now, we came back from South Africa, just myself and my son. I'd left my husband over there with his family for a bit longer. And my son, within a couple of days, had never rolled. He certainly wasn't crawling or sitting up. He'd never rolled over in his life. I literally just put him on the middle of a big double bed. I turned round to get a nappy. In the process of turning round to get a nappy, within seconds, I heard a thump. And my son, for the very first time, had rolled over, but had rolled off the bed. Now, I tell you now, I can still remember that. And this was 2005. Sorry, beg your pardon, 2006. And I remember this like it was yesterday. I didn't drive in those days, and I literally ran with that child in my arms. I was heartbroken. I was sobbing. I had visions that they were going to take him off me because I wasn't looking after him properly. I had visions that he'd bumped his head and then, would be, mentally, brain damaged for the rest of his life. I had every scenario you can think of. I felt sick with guilt. I really did. I mean, he was fine, he was absolutely fine. He was checked over by the professionals, and they were absolutely happy for him to be discharged and that he hadn't broken any bones or anything. But I tell you, I did not let that boy out of my sight for some time after that, and I'm talking months. I was so paranoid that something else would harm him, or I would be neglectful and he'd come to harm. So for her to have to leave and go on an official engagement merely an hour or so after this supposed fire, no, I don't buy that story at all. I absolutely don't. I'm not going to go bang on about that scenario, but yeah, I just don't. I find that highly questionable. So going on, the next part of the podcast sees Rachel showing off about how she knew the incredible, enormous bombshell news that Serena Williams was retiring from professional tennis when the rest of the world didn't. Because you're so special, aren't you, love? And how she wasn't going to betray Serena's trust. That's really ironic, given that she's happy to betray the trust of the Queen, the royal family, and the entire British nation. Yeah, okay. Not to mention betraying the trust of Netflix, and not least her own father. As I said before, she does quite often throughout the podcast, she refers to being a mom. Funnily enough, though, she does do this being a mom Mardi Gras quite often, but never once did she mention Lily. She mentioned Archie that one time in that scenario of the fire, but she never once spoke about Lily, which I find really strange, actually, given that it was all about empowerment and women, and never mentioned her at all. So that part, when she spoke about being a mom, it started off another coughing fit, because they were cackling, Markle and Serena Williams, just cackling and cooing on this podcast over their shared respective pregnancies. with Meghan Markle telling Serena Williams that, you know, she made pregnancy sexy while Meghan just waddled. Yeah, there is something I would like to say about that, but I won't because I don't want to. I don't want the channel to disappear. But if you know what I'm getting at with the waddling scenario, please do feel free to pop it in the comments. So throughout the hour-long episode, she consistently references how brave it is to stop doing something, or to make hard decisions and walk away, or choose freedom, or liberation. Yeah, just cut the crap, woman. Stop talking about yourself. We all know you are. We all know what you're, you know, passively aggressively referring to. So, you know, my final thoughts. That's 1 hour of my life I'm not going to get back. There was nothing special. Just a lot of predictable white noise and her moaning about being labelled and put in a box, you know, just like she did to us when she told Oprah that the British people were racist, not to mention pale and stale. So yeah, okay. So one of my lovely followers on Twitter posted this earlier. I could not have said it better myself. So, it seems that next week's special guest is none other than one of the biggest egos in showbiz, or so I've read, Mariah Carey. I can't wait to not hear that one, the clash of the egos. But I might just take one for the team again, see how I'm feeling on that particular day. But for now, though, please do feel free to leave your comments below. Remember to like, share and subscribe. And hopefully I'll be able to see you again very soon. Bye for now.